YouTube. Hey, what's up? How's it going? I'm Bastion, and in my last video, I talked about all the changes made to the Frostborn class as of Spellbreak Chapter 1, and those were positive changes and really good things that happened to Frostborn. In this video, we're going to talk about Pyromancer and all the changes made to that class as of Spellbreak Chapter 1, and those changes aren't as good. It was a nerf. I mean, you know, to be fair, Pyromancer was very, very strong. Like, very, very, very strong. Like, very, 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 very strong in the prologue and kind of before, since launch of Spellbreak. So I think the nerf that came to the class was ultimately a good thing. Can't argue with that. And it did need to be nerfed. But now, you know what I mean? It's like Pyromancer is just like not great, not looking good. And you know, we'll get into it in the video. But I have some changes in mind, things that I'd like to see shift about Pyromancer. We'll get into it. But first, if you like the video, of course, you guys can like the video. You can also subscribe to my channel to get more helpful Spellbreak content like this every week. And if you want to catch up with me in real time, you can come by my Twitch page. Link in the description below. Go give me a follow over there. I'll be streaming. I'm happy to answer questions that you might have about Pyromancer or Frostborn or anything else in Spellbreak or in life in general, you know? But with that, let's get into the video. Talking about Pyromancer today, baby. All right, so we got the Pyromancer class here, and there are two changes to the Pyromancer that we have here, and they're both in the class skills. So the first one is a change to Combust. Combust works, you know, functionally the same way. Mechanically, you know, it's very similar to how it worked before. There's still a 200% explosion damage. Explosion radius rather, to your fireball. So, you know, regular fireballs explode in a small radius, and then this radius is just, well, it's 200% bigger. And direct hits of a fireball also apply ignite. So that's what the Combust skill gave you before, and it's what it still gives you. But there are slight changes, and we'll hop into the practice lobby and talk about those and show those in a little bit here. The other change is to Conflagration. Conflagration used to send 4 cinders out from your fireball, and they used to do 10 damage if they hit anyone. Now they don't do damage. They do apply ignite. They also used to block projectiles, and now they don't. So, you know, if you were firing multiple fireballs in, you hit with the first one, and a little cinder came off, and your second fireball hit that cinder, it would explode there and it wouldn't go right through. So now it goes right through. Yeah, we'll hop into the practice lobby and talk about Conflagration too. But needless to say, I have really nothing positive to say about Conflagration as a skill. We'll get into why and everything in a second here, but let me just grab some loot. I'll grab a class level so that I can zoom around a little bit and grab all this stuff and start talking about Combust. So, Combust, it works the same way, except it doesn't. There are some different things, and the difference is that the damage fall off now for Combust is much greater. So, before you had a baseline, like, you know, the edge of your Combust range. So if I fire out there, you see the explosion radius, the outer yellow circle there. On the outside of that explosion radius, I think the baseline was 10 damage, and then it increased. I think it was basically a linear increase into max damage. You know, on a purple gauntlet, I have focused mana on, but I think it's about 34 damage on a direct hit, and then 10 damage on the outside. Now, I think the least damage you can do is like, it's about 8 or something like that. And then it ramps up, but there's an exponential ramp up. So you don't just go from like 8 and then a step in, it's 9, step in, it's 10. It's like, you know, it's 8 for a bit, and then it ramps up to that 34 on a direct hit. So you can see it here on the practice dummy. If I hit, that was a 9. You know, that's an 8, and that's basically the edge of the explosion radius right there on an 8. If I go a little bit closer, okay, that was an 18, so 8 to 18, like that. If I get, that's a direct hit right there. If I get right at the feet, it's a 25. So look at the difference there. So hitting right next to Pirate Marla's feet, this was a 25, and that's a 40. So 25, you know, 28 to 40 right there. That's a huge ramp up, really close to the target. Whereas before, you know, that hit right there might have been closer to like a 35. Now it's down in the 20s somewhere. So, you know, I mean, it was a meme for Pyromancers where they could never hit you in a fight and still win the fight because they would just, you know, hit around you. It'd be ground aimers and all that stuff, you know. Pyromancers would never be able to hit you. But, you know, and I think that was a valid criticism, to be honest. But that's definitely not going to be as true now. It's going to be much harder to actually do significant damage if you're not hitting those direct shots. You know, to be honest, I mean, you want to be hitting direct shots anyway, as it applies ignite and all that stuff. And I think it's, you know, it's ultimately a good change. Pyromancer was a very strong class before this change, and it's still a pretty strong class. I mean, I think it's a little lost now. I think it's, you know, I don't really know what the identity of the class is. Whereas other classes, you know, you can really tell, like a toxicologist is, you know, it's a sneaky big damage dealer. It's kind of like a rogue if you play like WoW or something like that. And other, you know, Frostborn is definitely a sniper that benefits from, you know, taking high ground and then defending its high ground and stuff like that. Stone Shaper is all about area control, and, you know, that class might be a little lost too. Pyromancer, I don't know. It deals a lot of damage. You know, it's a very aggressive class. It has a lot of tools, you know, with Firefly and the explosion radius to be very aggressive. But and I would like to see some changes to Combust, and for them to do something a little bit different with the class. But, you know, here we are right there. That's the change basically to Combust, is just, you know, the hits that did significant damage before aren't going to be doing as significant of damage now. And that's basically, that's a good indicator of, you know, of where you need to be hitting, and really, you know, if you didn't know before, you need to be hitting those direct shots on Pyromancer now. Combust will help you a little bit. It'll give you a little bit of help. But really, yeah, you know, you need to be hitting those direct shots now. Now, the other thing that changed is Conflagration. And like I said before, I really don't have much, like anything positive to say about Conflagration. I think it's basically a nerf on the class. And this change, I think, I don't know if they wanted this to be a positive change, but I think this just nerfed the skill way more. You know, it took out a very a seldom occurrent thing that would happen in the game, basically, where you would hit someone and, you know, these little cinders that came off, multiple cinders would hit the target, and you could take like up to 100 damage from a single fireball, because all of the cinders and the fireball would hit you all at once, and you would just take like a crap ton of damage all at once. I think they wanted to avoid that happening, and that's part of the reason why they made this change to Conflagration, and I think they wanted it to like be more effective. So now we can see here Conflagration, instead of doing the 4 cinders, now it does 6. It also, and they don't do damage anymore. They used to do 10 damage on a hit. Now they just ignite targets. They also can't ignite you. You are immune to being ignited. Yeah, so you're immune to your cinders, which is, I mean, that's a good change, because before the Conflagration did way more damage to me than it ever did to anyone else in any target. The only like really niche purpose or good thing that Conflagration did was a ball would every now and then fall onto a tox cloud and explode it and deal dragonfire damage to a toxicologist. So that's basically like the only benefit from it. So now it applies ignite. I don't know. I mean, I think it's just a trash ability. I think it's like a nerf on the class, personally. I think there's a way that you could shake up the all the talents in Pyromancer and get rid of Conflagration. You know, the one good thing that there was about Conflagration before is that it was actually a pretty good aim trainer. So what you could do, since the little cinders, since they would interrupt they would block projectiles. So, you know, now they don't block projectiles anymore. So before, if you were shooting multiple fireballs in and one of your fireballs got hit by the cinder, it would hit that little cinder and it would explode here, right? Oh, jeez. It would explode here instead of the fireball going through and hitting the target. And so they made that change so that, you know, your fireballs aren't blocked by the cinders anymore. Which, you know, I guess, I don't know, that's probably a good thing. But what you could do before is you could train your aim, and you could go up here and wait for a cinder to come down and then try to hit it. And then, you know, they would collide, your fireball would collide with the cinder, and then it would shoot off more, and you could train your aim like that. It was actually a really cool aim trainer in here. And one of the only useful things about Conflagration, now it doesn't even have that. So I think this skill is like completely lost, and they should really just get rid of it. They should look to move on from Conflagration. But that's sort of another discussion. And, you know, this is what we got for the Pyromancer class right now, and those are the changes that have been made. You know, Combust, that damage fall off has increased. So you won't be doing as much damage, is what that means. And then Conflagration has a bunch of little tweaks to it. It doesn't block projectiles. There are 6 little cinders instead of 4. They apply ignite to targets now instead of dealing 10 damage to them. Small things, but you know, they definitely adjust how you play Pyromancer. You're going to want to really focus on hitting direct shots with your fireballs now, where it's, you know, not necessarily something you needed to worry about before for Pyromancer. This was definitely a huge nerf to Pyromancer. I think it kind of brought Pyromancer back into the realms of reality a little bit. You know, Pyromancer was very, very strong at launch for Spellbreak, and now it's a little bit more on a level playing field. It might even be a little weak. You know, one of my main criticisms of this class, I would say, is that most 3rd level skills in all the other classes are really big skills. You can think of Tundra for Frostborn. That's a huge benefit to the class. Outbreak for Toxicologists. Let's not get started to how good that is. I think it's called Power Surge for Conduit. Is, you know, you get 4 seconds of free spells, basically. You know, the reduction to the spell casting cost. Tempest gets Squall. These are, you know, class-defining features. And Pyromancer has Paralysis, which does 12 damage for the first 2 seconds of your flame wall. I don't know. I don't think that's very class-defining. I think Paralysis would be a nice little 4th level skill. And then Conflagration can go into the trash. And maybe, you know, Pyromancer would feel a little bit better if the old Combust, how Combust was before, was that 3rd level skill. So it was really Combust was really powerful, but you didn't have it at first, you know, and maybe just your 1st level skill would be Ignite, because Ignite is a very good skill for a very good component of that 1st Combust skill. I think it could stand alone as a skill. It gives you tracking on your opponents. It does damage over time. You know, right now how it is, I think it's a little maybe unfair to other people that if you have Ignite, you can't pot because it interrupts your potting, it interrupts invisibility. And I think if Ignite was a standalone skill as your 1st skill, I think that would be pretty fair, that it would interrupt all that stuff. Whereas now, you know, right now it kind of feels like, I don't know, it's just a little unfair that it does that combined with Combust. But if Combust was how it was, you know, a significant damage buff later on in the game. It would train Pyromancers to actually hit their shots early game, which is nice. That would be good. You wouldn't have as many ground aimers or, you know, whatever, combust reliant Pyromancers, and then they would get a big buff at the end of the game. I think that might be really good for the Pyromancer class. I'm not exactly sure if that's the total fix, you know, and Firefly is a good skill. Paralysis is, you know, I mean, it's not a nerf on the class like Conflagration, so I don't mind it as the 4th level talent. But those are just my initial thoughts. I want to hear what you guys think about this and what you can do to Pyromancer, because, you know, Pyromancers, I think it's still a strong class, but it's a strong class because the Fire Gauntlet is a strong gauntlet. And, you know, it's kind of similar to Stone in that way. Stone Shaper it's a decent class to pick because the Stone Gauntlet is a decent gauntlet. And, you know, it deals a ton of damage. It really punishes people for mispositioning. In the Fire Gauntlet, you know, it's just really powerful. It does a lot of damage from a lot of different distances. But I think in the Pyromancer class, I think it could feel a little bit better to play Pyromancer. I don't know. That's just me. That's what I'm thinking. Guys, thanks for watching this video detailing all the changes that happened to Pyromancer as of Spellbreak Chapter 1. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you had a good time. You learned something. If you liked the video, like I said before, you can like the video. You can also subscribe to the channel, and if you want to check me out on Twitch, link is in the description below. Let me know your thoughts on Pyromancer and the changes that I proposed right at the end there and all that stuff. Let me know what you think about that stuff in the comments below. Other than that, I think that's it. I'll see you guys next time.